Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world of movies, movie news, TV, streaming, all sorts of good stuff. And ladies and gentlemen, he is our very own Jean-Luc Picard, and Q rolled into the one. He is the one and the only Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing today, sir?
Oh, John, it's the poser Star Wars Day, not May 25th when Star Wars opened, but it's May 4th. So may the 4th be with you, John.
And may the 4th be with you, and may the 4th be with everybody. And we do have a little bit of Star Wars to talk about here today on May the 4th, and we got a lot of stuff that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the new Ms. Marvel set photo that we actually talked a little bit about yesterday. We'll go into a little bit more detail on it here today. We're going to talk about what the hell happened with Mortal Kombat, something we were going to talk about yesterday, but that big Marvel video dropped, so we spent all day talking about that. We're going to give our little insight and review into the new Michael B. Jordan movie, Without Remorse. We're going to talk about Star Wars: The Bad Batch. We're going to talk about Andrew Garfield saying he is not in Spider-Man No Way Home. We're going to talk about Kevin Feige explaining why in an earlier draft of WandaVision they decided to pull Doctor Strange out of it. That and a whole bunch more. And ladies and gentlemen, here's how today's show is going to go. We break it down into two parts. In the first half of the show, we're going to take some predetermined topics that we've got lined up. And then, of course, in the second half of the show, we're going to take your live comments and questions. And here's how you get a live comment or question on the show. Simply go to the tip link that's in the description of this video, click on it, or you can enter it in manually simply at streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your comment or question on a show if it's appropriate for the show. And of course, you'll be supporting the channel at the same time. And all of us here involved with the John Campea Show, thank you guys very, very much for that support. Okay, with all that out of the way, let's get into our first off-the-top sort of topic here today. And the first one is this. As we mentioned, today is, of course, May the 4th, Star Wars Day. And to commemorate Star Wars Day, Disney and Lucasfilm dropped on us the first episodes of the brand new Star Wars: The Bad Batch. And The Bad Batch is what's the best way to describe it? It's kind of a continuation of Clone Wars. Actually, some critics are kind of saying it's nothing more than Clone Wars Season 8. I think the last one was Season 7. It's Clone Wars Season 8. Anyway, the good folks over there were kind enough to send me some screening links of the first two episodes about a week ago. I finally had a chance to sit down and watch it a couple days ago. I watched the first two episodes. Here's my thoughts on Bad Batch. First of all, it's better than I expected because, of course, the Bad Batch are a group of characters that were introduced in the first couple of episodes of the last season, and they were awful. I mean, it was just completely rubbish. Even hardcore Clone Wars fans who were excited about the new season were writing, this isn't so good. Of course, then they moved past the Bad Batch storyline into the other storyline, and everybody got back on board with it. But the Bad Batch episodes were terrible. And so I was really not expecting much from this. However, I gotta say, this show is not great by any stretch of the imagination, but it is better than I thought. And the primary reason why, to me, it's better than I thought it would be is because it feels very character focused, Rob. Whereas in the Bad Batch episodes of Clone Wars, it was just a bunch of rough and tumble. Look at us misfits. Rawr. But in this one, they really get into character. And they talk more about character. And I won't give it away. I mentioned this on my Twitter. I won't give it away. But there's actually a very pleasant surprise, a familiar face that we know that pops up in like the first 10 minutes that actually makes really, sometimes they shoehorn in these, hey guys, remember Tatooine? Like they shoehorn in these forced references, but they had a very familiar face pop up in the first like 10 minutes that actually fit perfectly to help tell that part of the story. And it really worked. And I kind of got on board with it, and they introduced the characters, so went more in depth into who and what they are. Now, once you got past episode 1, and episode 1 is over an hour long. Episode 1, I think, is like 71 minutes long. Yeah. So it was a good full series introduction. Then you get into episode 2, which is like 25 minutes. And it felt a little bit more paint by numbers. I wasn't all that interested in episode 2. They were hammering on themes that has been done in various Star Wars lore 1,000 times and whatever. So look, overall, Rob, my assessment of The Bad Batch, which I had almost zero interest in, and I thought did not look good at all. It is better, a good amount better than I thought it would be. I still don't think it's
good.
Yeah, it is good. No, it's good. And I still don't think it's great. I didn't end it and think, oh my God, can't wait to watch the next one like I did with Harley Quinn, which I thought was going to suck.
Right.
And I finally checked it out and I was like, oh my God, I can't wait to watch more. But you know what? Here's the thing. It is very, very formulaic Clone Wars. And so if you are into Clone Wars, and I know a lot of people are, so if you're into Clone Wars, I think this show is definitely for you. I think you'll be happy. I can honestly say I think you'll be quite happy with it because, like I said, to me, it exceeded my expectations. And if they continue down the road that was more like episode 1, which is more dramatic, it fed more into character development and all that kind of stuff. If the rest of this series is more like episode 1 and less like episode 2, this could be something that becomes a part of my regular viewing rotation because really I thought that first hour-long episode was pretty solid, which I am shocked to hear myself say. I'm absolutely shocked to hear myself say that, but it's pretty solid. I call it like I see it. Rob, you've seen, you obviously saw the last season of Clone Wars, so you saw the Bad Batch introduction. You've seen the promos. Where's your expectation level been for Bad Batch?
Well, I've liked, I mean, it got a rocky start, the Clone Wars did with that feature film, but I really have enjoyed it. I particularly like the latter seasons. I mean, I think seasons 4, 5, and 6 are actually great Star Wars. And then this new season they did, again, it started off rocky, and the Bad Batch was, I think the idea has been better than the execution. I mean, it almost started out, the whole idea of the Bad Batch is sort of gimmicky in itself. I mean, I get it, and I'm there for it, but I wanted it to transcend its gimmicky idea, and I don't think it ever did. And this, again, I've only seen the first episode, which I thought, like you said, I watched it yesterday after you said it was good, and I liked it, but it's still like you said, it's I wanted it to do something more. I wanted it to take the concept a little further, but again, I haven't seen where they go. But I liked it, and Hot Toys did drop a figure from the Bad Batch today for Star Wars Day, and I'm like, you know what? If I will buy that. I mean, I want to see where it goes, and there's a lot of cool stuff in the Bad Batch, cool Star Warsian stuff that I really liked. So, it's a good trip to the Star Wars universe, a good trip back. I just want it to be a little better, but it's pretty good as far as I can tell.
The first episode actually is pretty good, which surprised me. You guys hear me talk about episode 2. Yes, they sent me the episode 2, but it's not available publicly yet. So you guys haven't seen episode 2 yet. I think it's a step backwards, episode 2. But again, if they can model the rest of the show more like episode 1, this could become pretty interesting. And I like the character work they did. Question is for you guys. Have you guys had a chance to see The Bad Batch, the new Star Wars show, episode 1? If so, what did you think about it? Did it meet your expectations? Did it exceed it? Did you not like it? What do you think about it? Jump on down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With that down, let's do one more off the top, shall we? And this is actually a pretty big one. Now, one of the bigger kind of stories going around in comic book movie fandom for a while has been the whole notion that we could see Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, because there have been a lot of whispers and rumblings, as we have always pointed out, nothing from any legitimate news site and nothing from the sources themselves, but a lot of whispers and rumbling regardless that Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire were going to pop up in Spider-Man No Way Home. I myself said, look, there's no actual proof that this is real, but I personally believe they will. Right? I said, look, there's no evidence. No legitimate news site has said it is. None of the actual sources have said it is. But strictly on a belief basis, I kind of believe that I think we will see Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire. Well, not according to Tobey Maguire, apparently. Andrew Garfield.
Yeah.
Not according to Andrew Garfield. Andrew Garfield finally did an interview, and he was asked directly about the whole situation. And he basically laid it down. He basically said the following. He said, "There's nothing to ruin. Listen, I can't speak for anything else but for myself. Like, they might be doing something, but I ain't got a call. I did not get a call. Listen, I would have gotten a call by now. That's all I'm saying." So Andrew Garfield saying, look, I don't know what they're doing. They could be doing a lot of different things. All I'm saying is that they have not called me, and I would assume that if they were going to do something with me, I would have gotten that call by now. And so Andrew Garfield is officially denying that he is involved in any way, shape, or form with the upcoming Spider-Man No Way Home, which I think for some people will be disappointing. Now, look, Rob, there is, of course, the possibility here, as there is always a possibility, that this is a misdirect. There's always a possibility when an actor, director, producer, whatever says something, it could be a misdirect, right? Like, obviously, the same example we always go back to. J.J. Abrams said that Benedict Cumberbatch wasn't Khan, and it turned out, obviously, that he was. He was lying through his teeth. But it doesn't happen often. That's like 1 in a million that actually happens, but it's possible. So now I simply don't know what to think. Rob, you hear these comments from Andrew Garfield. I mean, look, obviously the idea that Garfield and Maguire may show up together in the new Spider-Man with Tom Holland got a lot of people excited, everybody buzzing, but there's never been any actual proof. There's never been any official confirmation. It's all been speculation and whispers. Even fools like me saying, well, I still kind of believe it'll happen, even if there's no proof of it. Rob, now we've got Andrew Garfield saying, look, all I'm saying is they would have called me by now and they haven't called me. What do you think of these comments? Is it a misdirect? Do you think he's telling the truth and he's actually not in it? Were you even interested in seeing an Andrew Garfield showing up? I don't know. What are your thoughts on this whole thing?
Dude, I'm still waiting for Mephisto to show up in WandaVision. I mean, you know, I think that we have reached a point of annoyance when it comes to these things, because one day Spider-Man No Way Home is going to open. Maybe it'll stream, maybe you'll see it in the theater, and you'll know the answer. I mean, it's just like I'm there's all this speculation. I think WandaVision should have taught us all a lesson. Why don't we just wait and let it unfold? You know, all of this, it's gotten to the point where spoilers and all these things. I mean, I know we all love to speculate, but if Andrew Garfield says he hasn't gotten a call and he's not in it, until I have any more new information, I'm just going to take that as the gospel. If it comes out of his mouth, hey, great. And then if he does show up in Spider-Man No Way Home, I can have a big smile on my face and be pleasantly surprised with the knowledge that I own an Andrew Garfield hot toy from The Amazing Spider-Man. And now it just means he's canonical, and I can put that Spider-Man right next to my Tom Holland figure. And life is grand. But until then, I'll take this at face value. And I'll be like, Andrew, I wish you were in Spider-Man No Way Home because it sounds bonkers. But if you don't want to be, and they never, I don't believe though, John, I don't believe that they didn't try and call him.
Rich, so that leads he's lying about that.
He could be lying. So I'm just going to, like, either way, I'm sure when they release a trailer, the last shot of the trailer is going to be all three of those Spider-Men standing together, because why wouldn't that be the way they would end a trailer for this?
If it was in the movie. If it was in the movie, yeah, for sure.
If it's in the movie, if he's not in the movie, we're not going to see him, because wouldn't that be a selling point? Wouldn't that be like a Twister-esque end tag on that trailer?
Yeah, well, I remember there was a debate going on. And by the way, Wyatt Bender and Dragon 10 both send in super chat badges in the live chat stream there. Thanks, guys. Appreciate that. I remember having this debate about, okay, if they are in it, do we think they'll be in the trailer? And I'm like, the only reason they would have Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire pop up in it is to sell the movie more.
Yes.
You're damn right, but it would spoil the reveal. They don't give a shit about the reveal. They give a shit that that's going to sell tickets and that people will come for it. I mean, but if you're going to put them in a trailer, remember we said, if you're going to put them in the trailer, they better not just be in it for 30 seconds like J.K. Simmons was in the last one. If you're going to put them in the trailer, they better be in the movie. But here's the thing look, even though I have always said that, hey, I believe, even though there is no proof I believe we're going to see Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire in this movie. The reality is, if they were ever on set and actually in a legitimate chunk of the movie, like more than a 10-second cameo, you don't think the sources of the Hollywood Reporter would have found this out? Do we not think that the sources of Variety would have known and found this out, or the Wrap or Entertainment Weekly or Coming Soon or whatever would have identified this and found this out and reported it? Of course they would have. So, I mean, I don't know. So I have now switched my position from saying, hey, we've got no proof, but I believe they're going to be in it, to, well, I mean, I personally take Andrew Garfield at his word here. When you compound the fact that he's saying, look, I'm not in it, I would have gotten a call by now. Like, you never know what Marvel's going to do, even up to the last second. But if they were going to call me, they would have called me by now, and they haven't. Compound that with the fact that none of the legitimate news sites, not Deadline, not Variety, not the Hollywood Reporter, not the Wrap, not Entertainment Weekly, none of them have reported about him possibly being in it. I'm going to take him at his word. I no longer believe Andrew Garfield's going to be in it, which just sets me up to be pleasantly surprised if he is.
Yep.
So we'll see. So I guess the question now is for you guys. What do you think about this? Andrew Garfield has just stone cold denied that he is going to be in this movie. He says they haven't called him, and they would have called him by now if he was going to be doing a last second thing. What do you think? Is this an elaborate misdirect? Do you think this is a Hollywood thing and it's just a misdirect and he's actually going to pop up and surprise us? Which, you know, I doubt, because if he was going to be in it, I agree with you, Rob, they put him in the trailer, so it would take away that surprise anyway. Or do you think, yeah, we believe Andrew Garfield, he's not going to be there, that's okay. Those Spider-Man movies have been great. The third one's going to be great without Andrew Garfield. Who knows? What do you guys think? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With that down, let's move on to our main topics now here, shall we? And how do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with our main topics. Whenever you come across a big topic, story, or issue that you think we should have as a main topic here on the John Campea Show, go anytime 24/7 over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question. It's totally free. Hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission featured as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's get into main topic number 1. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Box Office Fan, who writes, so, Mortal Kombat in its second weekend has lost to Dragon Slayer at the box office. It also had a huge drop in its second week. The Demon Slayer drop was expected, as Dragon Ball had a drop, but also Mortal Kombat having so huge of a drop was a surprise. Some are saying it's a double punch of bad reviews and HBO Max. HBO Max is getting a big blame, with them saying fans didn't care for Mortal Kombat as much and ended up watching it again on HBO Max, overpaying to see it in theaters again. All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. Now, of course, Mortal Kombat had a terrific opening weekend. I think it was about $22 million, as we are still in a pandemic and we still have limited theater capacity and we still have people, hesitant to go to the movies. And of course, it was available on HBO Max if people just want to sit at home. The fact that Mortal Kombat made $22 million is impressive. However, what is not impressive is the fact that it took a massive, massive drop from weekend 1 to weekend 2. This information is given to us by the folks over at Box Office Mojo. Of course, we see its opening weekend. It's saying it was actually $23.3 million was its opening weekend. However, as you go down to its weekend charts and we take a look here, we see that it in its second weekend took a 73.2% drop. Now, back when everything was normal, what you wanted to see in a second weekend drop was somewhere between 50 and 60%. Anything below a 50% drop was magnificent. Anything over a 60% drop was cause for concern. A 73% drop is absolutely massive. This comes to us from the folks over at Forbes, who write the following. Mortal Kombat earned another $6.235 million in weekend 2, dropping a harsh 73% from its $23.3 million domestic debut. Mortal Kombat Annihilation fell 59% over Thanksgiving weekend after a $16 million launch in 1997. It's the fourth biggest second weekend drop ever for a video game flick, just below Warcraft at a 70% drop from a $24 million debut in 2016. And Doom, oh, remember how bad Doom was? And Doom, 72.7% drop from a $15.5 million launch in 2005. Absent the HBO Max variable, which allowed folks to relish their favorite scenes at home, this drop likely would have been closer to a Resident Evil sequel, 65% to 68% drop, than Doom. However, while Wonder Woman 1984 suffered a similar fate, minus 67% drop after a $16.4 million debut last Christmas. This comes to us from Forbes. And by the way, PXZ sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thanks, PXZ. So, Rob, we now come back and we take a look at Mortal Kombat, a 73. I mean, look, this is brutal. There's no sugarcoating this.
No.
It's a brutal drop. The question becomes, what is to blame? All right. First thing, absolutely a part of this has to do with HBO Max. You know, the fact that even people who liked it, they say, okay, I went to the theater, I had the perfect experience with it, yay. But if I'm going to watch it again, I can just turn it on HBO Max and watch it at home. So it hurts second repeat viewing. Absolutely, I think that is a major player here. Not to mention, you compound that just with the people who just never went to the theater to watch it in the first place because of HBO Max. That is a major player. But the other major player here you cannot overlook is that it's a very bad movie. And the reviews for it have been harsh, and word of mouth has not been great. So unlike Godzilla vs. Kong, which also had the HBO Max variable, but I believe it only took like a 59% drop, but Godzilla vs. Kong had people buzzing about it. Yeah, there was not everybody loved it for sure, but there was, generally speaking, a real wave of positivity and a lot of fun, me included, about it that got a lot of people to go and say, okay, well, I'm going to go check it out then. And people went to go see it on the second weekend. Mortal Kombat didn't enjoy that. So they had the same drawback of HBO Max, but they didn't have the help of really high hype buzz and positive enthusiasm of people having a good time. And it resulted in a massive drop. Anyway, Rob, you're taking a look at these numbers. By the way, how fun is it to actually legitimately be able to talk about box office numbers again? It's pretty cool.
I never thought it would come back, John. And there's something very comforting to me about this.
So what do we attribute this to, Rob? Like, I'm suggesting HBO Max is a big thing, obviously negative word of mouth. But when you look at this, how do you analyze the whole situation?
Well, I think it's maybe not as difficult to understand because, like with horror films, which can have precipitous drop-offs in the second week, because you have a very specific targeted audience for Mortal Kombat. It's not exactly a 4-quadrant movie. It's not like, say, Godzilla versus Kong, where kids and their parents can go together. Mortal Kombat is R-rated. And it appeals mostly, I think, to gamers who know the world, or fans of the original who have grown up. So I think it was compared to general audiences, it was just a narrow audience. And everybody that was excited about Mortal Kombat, that was willing to go pay for it in a theater, went that first weekend. And there just wasn't that many more people left in the movie-going audience that were interested. And I think you can see parallels to that in certain horror films. Horror films have traditionally a very front-loaded box office. And I think with Mortal Kombat, it wasn't surprising, but I think it did pretty well for that opening weekend. I mean, I was surprised at how much it actually made. And during a pandemic, and the people that wanted to see it, like, I really had no desire to run out and see it in a theater. Not the way I'd want to see Godzilla versus Kong in a theater. So I think it's, I just think it's a pretty easy thing to understand. The audience for it is a limited audience.
Now, Rob, let's say you're an executive over there, because I know a lot of, we addressed the question after its first weekend success of, what needs to happen here for Mortal Kombat to get a sequel greenlit.
Right.
Well, the context has changed a little bit now. Like, now we have a second weekend. with a massive drop off. This wasn't something that was able to generate any momentum. It wasn't able to carry over into a second weekend success like a Godzilla versus Kong did. Now that you're sitting here as an executive, and now you're seeing you had a strong $22 million opening weekend that dropped almost 73% going into its second. You're seeing the negative word of mouth, all that kind of stuff. What's going through your head right now as an executive at the studio in trying to determine if this thing gets a sequel or not?
Well, I think I rather than look at obviously the opening box office would be important, and I would take into consideration we're still in the midst of COVID, and the fact that it does not have a 4-quadrant audience the way, say, a Godzilla versus Kong might have. And then I would look at the streaming numbers, because what we don't know is maybe Mortal Kombat overperformed streaming wise. So, you've got these two numbers to gauge, and we're only getting one of those numbers. And I would say, okay, well, based on these numbers and the budget and a number of factors, I think that the movie wasn't hugely expensive. So I think there's a number of factors that we don't yet know. I'd love to hear what the streaming numbers are. And if we get those numbers and they're high, like if an inordinate amount of people watch Mortal Kombat, say 2 or 3 times, especially if you're a fan, you want to watch the carnage, you wanted to watch the fight scenes or whatever, then maybe it would be justified. But you'd have to take both of those, the streaming numbers and the box office numbers.
Question is, guys, what do you think about the whole Mortal Kombat situation? How would you explain the dramatic drop at the box office, over 70% drop? What do you guys make of this whole thing? Jump on down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With that down, let's move into main topic number 2. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Steve Calderon, who writes, "Hey, John and Rob, photos surfaced online from the set of Disney Plus and Marvel Studios' upcoming series, Ms. Marvel in Atlanta, showing the first look of lead star Imen Yelani, by the way, good Canadian girl, just want to remind everybody about that, good Canadian kid, Imen, in full superhero costume. Do you guys... pardon me, like the suit?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, yesterday, here on the John Campea Show, we talked a lot about that. Well, we talked exclusively yesterday about that big Marvel drop, showing us all the stuff that they got coming up, the full lineup, a few first looks, that magnificent love letter to moviegoing by Stan Lee. That was great. And part of that was talking about the new look of Ms. Marvel, at least our first look at a live action version of Ms. Marvel. And it was actually very, very comic book accurate, as a matter of fact. It actually looked pretty good. So actually, if we go over and we can take a look again here at some of these images, this gives us a pretty good look at the image. And as you can see, while it is not like 100% bang on, it is pretty comic accurate. I mean, they do a pretty good job of making it look fairly accurate to what we have. And of course, we see the symbol on her chest going down the front of her body. That is, of course, the S at the end of the new title graphic for the upcoming Captain Marvel sequel, The Marvels. And we're going to have Monica Rambeau, we're going to have Ms. Marvel, and obviously Captain Marvel herself is going to be in there. So I had a chance to take a look at this, and it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Now, look, I'll be honest with you. I'm not a big fan of the super flashy kind of costumes. Like, I'm not really big on Black Lightning's costume, for example. I love the Black Lightning show, but I hate the costume. It looks terrible. I really liked a kind of more muted, even like that badass design, Rob, of the Scarlet Witch's costume. It's dull, color-wise. It's a duller, more muted color, but it's just got this slickness to it and this badassness to it. You get costumes like this and some others a little bit more flashy, but I think people who like the look in the comics are going to be very happy. I think it's kind of got that look, and we'll see where they're going from this. Anyway, Rob, you had a chance to take a look at this outfit they're sporting on set. What did you think about it?
Well, like you said, it's comic accurate. To me, I have to say, one of the things that I've always loved about the MCU is they've done, I think, a pretty fantastic job translating the comic book costumes into the real world. whether it's Captain Marvel's costume, whether it's Captain America, Thor, Iron Man. They've done a fantastic job. Now, I understand she's a teen hero, and obviously a very great iteration of this, but it looks, how do I want to put this? It looks a little cosplay for me. It looks like I'm seeing somebody that I would see it at the San Diego Comic-Con. But then again, I've seen this kind of thing before. It might look fantastic on camera, whereas these shots might not do it justice.
I mean, I love the shoes. I personally love the shoes.
Oh yeah, no, it's great. Well, because the shoes add an element of believability to it. But I'm like, it does look, I guess maybe because she made it herself or something. I'm gonna reserve judgment till I see it in action. But I do like the faithful recreation of the suit.
Yeah, and listen, the other thing here too is I am now, you know me, Rob, I've never had Ms. Marvel high on my, excitement list of the upcoming MCU projects, be they on Disney Plus or movies. I have never had Ms. Marvel really high on there. I have to admit, I've become more intrigued by it after seeing the announcement for the Marvels and just seeing that, this character is going to actually have a prominent role in, de facto Captain Marvel 2. So it's got me a little bit more intrigued. So we'll have to see how it works out. Question is for you guys. What did you guys think of the new look, our first look at the new Ms. Marvel that we're going to get on Disney Plus here? I actually think it looks pretty good, but like Rob, I think we're going to have to see it in context and see it in action to really get a feel for how it looks instead of these kind of leaked images. What do you guys think about it? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 3. And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by Heels for Cash writes, I've been a fan of the Tom Clancy books, and the film adaptations of his work have also been good, but I watched Tom Clancy's Without Remorse, and I found the movie to be bland. All the pieces seem to be there, and it looks like they should make a better whole than they did. Have you had a chance to check it out? Okay, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, I did. I sat down immediately when Without Remorse came out to give it a chance because, Rob, you'll remember that when the trailer came out for this thing, I lost my damn mind. I think you did too. I think both of us lost our minds for this trailer.
Yep.
The trailer was fantastic. It's based on Tom Clancy, Michael B. Jordan, who always brings it. Michael B. Jordan always brings it. So we were pretty damn excited for this show. So I sat down with Ann to popped on Without Remorse, broke out a bag of chips and some dip, got myself a soda. Ann had some popcorn out. We sat down to watch Without Remorse. It's awful. It's an awful movie. The first 10 minutes, now I'm not going to go into spoilers here, but the first 10 minutes are really good. Like the first 10 minutes, I thought, well, there's some pretty early 80s cliche dialogue going on, but other than that, the first 10 to 15 minutes, the part of the movie that kind of sets everything up, I thought was really solid. I'm like, okay, we could be in for a pretty good time here. And then it just, while Michael B. Jordan is terrific in it, it just devolves quickly into continuous horrible dialogue, terrible writing, massive loopholes in their logic, like massive logic gaps. Like you and I were talking before the show started about some of those, which I don't want to give them away because, a lot of people still haven't watched it and might be interested in seeing it. But while this was no Thunder Force, by the way, did you ever bring yourself to watch Thunder Force?
Dude, I tried.
It's so bad. I
understand what they were trying to do, but we've been getting so many different iterations of that kind of superhero story that it felt like it was made by people that hadn't ever come across these kinds of stories. And
dude, it was directed by Melissa McCarthy's husband. I mean, that's all we needed to know. But it's not Thunder Force bad. Don't get me wrong. Like, Without Remorse is not Thunder Force bad. Like, Thunder Force is truly one of the most awful movies I've seen in 5 years. It's not that bad. But just coming out of that trailer, Rob, like, we were so psyched for this movie. It looked so good. And by the time Anne fell asleep about 25 minutes into it, And I just respect my wife too much to wake her up to continue watching that drivel. So I just let her sleep through the rest of it. And I was just thoroughly, thoroughly disappointed with it. Anyway, Rob, you had a chance to watch Without Remorse. What were your thoughts on it?
Well, look, I'm a huge Tom Clancy fan, and I've read a lot of the source material that these movies are based on. And I find them, I really like the first 4 Tom Clancy movies. I did not like Shadow Recruit at all because it really wasn't based on a book. And I kind of find like Tom Clancy fans really like the book Without Remorse. I liked Without Remorse, and I like Rainbow Six. I found this movie strayed far, far away from the novel. And it was perplexing to me because, like we were talking about earlier, a lot of the plotting and a lot of the writing in this movie didn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense.
None.
And I kept asking myself, well, wait, what? Like you talked about, without ruining anything, let's just say there's a certain crash of a certain object that certain people are in. And I'm like, what? Like, how did you think this was a good idea? And it just becomes, I found it to be implausible. Let's say that. It bothered me. I'm like, what happened to movies like Clear and Present Danger or Hunt for Red October, which are so good? And they've got the material. They've got the book. Always go back to the book.
Yeah, I just couldn't get past the terrible dialogue and the massive logic holes. And it's like, this makes no, wait a minute. And then, by the way, there's this trope in it without giving anything away. There's this trope in the movie, guys, where, we've seen in movies and TV shows where somebody gets shot and they miraculously don't seem to, suffer the effects of it too terribly badly. Like there are moments in this movie where like our hero gets shot and like literally in movie time, 5 minutes later, he's like moving around like nothing's happening. Like every once in a while we'll grimace like, ooh, but other than that, it's like no impact whatsoever. It's all, anyway, that's just a minor nitpick, but to some larger story issues. Anyway, guys, pretty clear that Rob and I were both really disappointed in Without Remorse. We were both very, very stoked for this thing. I thought the trailers looked fantastic. It's got Michael B. Jordan. How can you go wrong? They found a way to go wrong. Question is, guys, did you have a chance to see it? What did you think? Maybe you loved it. Who knows? What did you guys think about Without Remorse? Jump on down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With that down, let's move into main topic number 4, shall we? And our 4th main topic today gets submitted to us by Harris Morgan, who writes, "Greetings, fellow filthies. I was watching the Warriors game tonight. The Golden State Warriors game was last night, and they played a brand new Loki spot. It was short, but a couple of really interesting things to take away from it. The classic glorious purpose line was used. Yes, it was. But also they kept referring to him as a variant. What did you think of the new spot, and what takeaways did you get from it?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, Harris. And yeah, it was very much by surprise, Rob. I was not expecting a new Loki spot. Considering that Loki is coming out about a month from now, I figured that last trailer we got was probably it as far as the promotional material goes. I thought we'd see a lot more of that trailer. But yeah, during an NBA game last night, they decided to drop a new spot. Now, Rob, Loki has ranked very high for me on my most anticipated upcoming MCU properties things. I love Tom Hiddleston in this role. I love the story behind how, for those of you who don't know, Tom Hiddleston was in the final 2 for consideration to play Thor in the Thor movie. It was between him and Chris Hemsworth. And they decided to go with Chris Hemsworth, but they just liked Tom Hiddleston so much. They were like, how would you like to play Loki? And it all worked out pretty damn well. Because Hiddleston has become world famous. He has made his name off of being Loki. And he is fabulous at it. And so with them doing a Loki series, I got really stoked about that. And now it's getting closer and closer than ever. And they dropped a new spot. And the new spot is actually pretty good. Now, like Harris said in the email, it is short. It's a short spot. But they did introduce a number of things. First of all, like Harris said, they gave us Loki giving his line, my name is Loki and I am burdened with glorious purpose. I love that. From the movie to when he came out on stage at Comic-Con and said that, it is just It's Shakespearean. Of course, it came from a Kenneth Branagh movie. Of course, it's Shakespearean. But it's Shakespearean. I am burdened with glorious purpose. But anyway, the folks over at Screen Rant did an actual pretty nice breakdown of it when they talk about some of the things to take note of in it. First of all, we see what we haven't seen before. We see Loki walking around wielding 2 daggers. So that was kind of interesting. Also, we got a little bit of a glimpse of these mysterious soldiers who may be TVA. They might be Time Variance Authority soldiers, but I have a feeling they're probably antagonists. So we'll find that out. So that was an interesting little shot. It looks like Loki is facing a trial with something else here. We got a good glimpse of the TVA city, which is something we really didn't get a really good look at before. It's actually what I think about the images in the comics about the Time Variance Authority when I see this, obviously clearly inspired. The volcanic eruption with Loki screaming there, that was a good point in that. So yeah, there was actually a good amount to take away, Rob, from this relatively short little spot for the next upcoming Disney Plus series, Loki, which starts in about a month. Rob, you had a chance to take a look at this new Loki spot. What are some of your takeaways from it?
Well, I mean, it just continues to make me very excited for this show because once again, one of the things that I think Marvel is doing with these series is they're pushing out the boundaries of their universe further and further and further. And like the Time Variance Authority, that's an out there concept. And what they're doing, I mean, that's as out there as anything with the Celestials and like mining a celestial head and using it as a place of commerce, like in Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, the Time Variance Authority adds a layer to the Marvel universe, a sci-fi fantastical layer that, if you think about the possibilities, are crazy that they exist in the same universe as, say, the first Iron Man movie. And presumably they've been there the entire time. We just haven't seen them. And I'm this Brazil, Terry Gilliam-like story where maybe there's multiple Lokis across timelines and all kind. It looks bonkers and it looks ambitious and it looks right up my alley. I'm really excited for this show.
What was your favorite part of this new spot, would you say?
Well, like you, I mean, I loved hearing that logo. I mean, hearing that line, glorious purpose, harking back to but what I really liked about it was they're kind of dropping this idea. I think they call him a variant.
Yes.
Which
is very interesting.
That's right. And I'm like, okay, that's a really intriguing idea because obviously the Loki that disappeared in Endgame is not our Loki. I mean, our Loki's dead, just like our Infinity Stones are gone. But now we're getting a Loki from a different timeline. And I'm just intrigued by the whole thing because I see that whatever this show's about, it's got to be bonkers. I mean, the level of depth in terms of where they're going to go in terms of time travel and the mechanics of the universe and the quantum realm, I think we're going to learn a lot about. And maybe it plays into the whole idea of the multiverse of madness. Maybe that Loki has something, whatever Loki's done, maybe he's the person that tears open the fabric of reality through his shenanigans. I don't know, but I'm there for it.
Anyway, guys, question is for you. What did you guys think of this new spot for Loki? There was actually, for a short little spot, there was actually a lot of kind of stuff they slipped in there. What do you guys think? Where's your excitement level for it right now? Maybe you're not interested in this one. You're just more interested in the bigger movies coming. Maybe you're dying for this one to come. What are your guys' thoughts? Jump down into the comments section below and leave your thoughts there. Okay, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 5, shall we? And our 5th main topic today is kind of an off the top. We didn't have an email come in for it, but this was something that I just kind of took note of this morning, and I thought it was something we should probably kind of address. Now, of course, the MCU on Disney Plus kicked off in a big way with WandaVision. I thought WandaVision was absolutely spectacular. I got hooked on that show from episode 1, and every week, like my whole life for 2 months, was just counting down to the next episode of WandaVision. It was absolutely fantastic. I loved it. It combined great things of mystery with heart, an examination of a woman's grief, all these sorts of things. They did so much stuff so much. They covered new ground a lot, Rob, with WandaVision, doing kind of stuff that we hadn't seen before in the MCU, which I thought was great. Now, one of the big speculations going around was, well, we know that Wanda, I should say, is going to be in Doctor Strange 2. We knew that. That was a fact. So, could we see Doctor Strange pop up in WandaVision? Well, it turns out that in an earlier draft of the show, they were going to include Doctor Strange in WandaVision. As a matter of fact, the whole commercials thing, the initial concept of the commercials during WandaVision was going to be subliminal type messages that Doctor Strange, we would find out at the end of the series that Doctor Strange was sending those to her, and that Doctor Strange was going to pop up in the finale. Now, of course, as they got closer to doing the show, Kevin Feige decided that that wasn't right for the show, and they decided to pull it out of the show. Now, he gave his explanation. Kevin Feige was being interviewed about this, and he gave his explanation as to why they decided to pull him out. And there's 3 things he said. 2 things are the main reasons he pulled him out that make total sense. And the third thing he said was kind of an off-the-cuff thing at the end that is the one thing that everybody is latching on to. And let's talk about that here for a second, shall we? We're going to jump over to our Campea classroom for a moment here. So why was there no Doctor Strange? This is Kevin Feige's actual quote. This is what Kevin Feige actually said about why Doctor Strange was pulled out. He said the following. Some people might say, oh, it would have been so cool to see Doctor Strange, but it would have taken away from Wanda. We didn't want the end of the show to be commoditized to going into the next movie. Here's the white guy. Let me show you how power works. All right. So I want to propose, let's read this again. Some people might say, oh, it would have been so cool to see Doctor Strange, but ultimately it would have taken away from Wanda. We didn't want the end of the show to be commoditized to go to the next movie. Here's the white guy. Let me explain how let me show you how power works. All right. So obviously the one thing that insecure males all over the world are grasping onto and talking about is that last little line he threw in there about, here's the white guy saving you, right? And that's all anybody's talking about. And it's idiotic. But we will talk about that in a second. The first thing we should talk about are what Kevin Feige really said were the 2 main reasons why they needed to take Doctor Strange out before they got to shooting it. The first reason that he gave is that it would have taken away from Wanda. And he's absolutely right.
Yes.
There is a reason that Spider-Man doesn't show up at the end of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, because it's not Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Spider-Man. This is their story to tell their context and their development. It would have been idiotic to have Spider-Man show up at the end of the day and save everything. It would have taken away. It is their show. It's their story. There are lots of stories about Spider-Man. He's popping up in everything. He pops up in Civil War. He pops up in the Avengers, in the Endgame stuff. He's popping up all over the place. He's getting his 3rd movie. It would have taken away from Falcon and Winter Soldier to just have the bigger superhero show up at the end and save the day. It just would have taken away from it. Rob, you got to remember, there are now, I think we're at 25. If you count Disney Plus stories, I believe we're now at 25. 25 MCU stories between the movies and the Disney Plus series. This is Wanda's first thing that she's leading. This is the first thing she's had to lead. She's been a guest star in a couple of things. This was her first thing to lead. By the way, out of 25, this is only the 2nd one that a woman has led. All the other 23 have all been male-led. This is only the 2nd time they've had a woman-led story. But this is her first one to really shine. To have Doctor Strange, I completely agree with Kevin Feige, because, Rob, when we were talking about months ago the possibility of Doctor Strange showing up, and there were pros and cons, but one of the things I said was it would just detract from Wanda. This is supposed to be Wanda and Vision's story. Really, it was more Wanda's story than Vision. but it would have detracted. And Kevin Feige apparently knew that, because Kevin Feige said it would have taken away from Wanda if we suddenly had Doctor Strange show up to save the day. The second one is even more important. It would have commoditized WandaVision. You know what WandaVision would have been if Doctor Strange shows up at the end? It would have been Spider-Man 3. No, sorry, I take that back. It would have been The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Because by the time we got to the end of Andrew Garfield's The Amazing Spider-Man 2, one of the things that everybody, including us, I think, Rob, was kind of pissed off about was the fact that, so this wasn't even its own movie. This was just here to set up Sinister Six. That's all this movie was for. It was just there to set up Sinister Six. And I think if at the end, Doctor Strange comes in to save the day and everything in what is supposed to be Wanda and Vision's story, there could have been a very legitimate complaint that, so really the whole point of WandaVision was just to set up Doctor Strange 2? And that's how it would have felt. It completely would have felt like this is just Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, the prelude. You could have just renamed WandaVision to Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, the prelude. So Kevin Feige recognized that. And remember, Rob, one of the things that we're always talking about the genius of Kevin Feige and how they've structured the MCU is the fact that you never have to watch one thing in order to watch another. Every single one of the MCU stories has been its own self-contained movie, and he never wants his stuff to feel like it's just a setup for the next thing, right? And that's one of the things he's always been there. So for Kevin Feige to come out and say that, number one, it would have taken away from Wanda, he's absolutely right, it would have. Number two, it would have commoditized the whole WandaVision, making it feel like it was just setting up Doctor Strange 2. He's absolutely right. It's exactly what would have happened. And at the end of the day, it's absolutely the right decision that he didn't put in Doctor Strange. For the same reason that he didn't have Spider-Man show up in Falcon the Winter Soldier, the same reason that Rhodey didn't show up, War Machine didn't show up at the end of Falcon the Winter Soldier, the reason all the heroes don't always show up at the end of everything, there was no reason to have him there, would have detracted. Now, the one thing that everybody wants to focus on is the white guy thing. But here's the thing. Again, Kevin Feige's right. Rob, we were just talking about how in all the MCU, and again, I might be off by one or two with the number, but I think it's 25. I think that's where we're at. It might be 26, it might be 24, whatever. But out of 25 MCU projects that have now come out, I believe 22 of them are white male led. I think 22 out of the 25 have white male leads. And that's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It just is. That's just what the number is. 22 out of the 25, because you had Captain Marvel, you had Black Panther, and we've had WandaVision. Sorry. Four. Because Captain Marvel... Falcon the Winter Soldier is led by Anthony Mackie. It is really more his story than Bucky's, so we'll say 4. So let's say 21 out of the 25 have been white male led. But more importantly, Rob, it's only the second female lead one that they've had. Kevin Feige, I think all he was pointing out was, look, they would have been open to a lot of criticism if in only the second female-led Marvel project to come out, they had to have a man come in at the end to save the day for her and explain everything to her. I think he's just recognizing they would have opened themselves up to a lot of criticism. And he's not wrong. It would have opened them up to a lot of criticism. Now, look, I will say this, and let me be clear about this. If it weren't for the fact that these two reasons were here, that it would have taken away from Wanda, and it would have, and that it would have turned, WandaVision into nothing but a prelude for Doctor Strange 2, and it would have. If this third comment was the only thing that Kevin Feige said, I would have probably taken issue with it. It's like, look, the story comes first. If it just so happens that the story completely flowed into and required Doctor Strange to show up, then don't avoid doing what is the natural narrative to do just because Doctor Strange happens to look like me, a pasty white dude. Don't avoid doing it just because of this. If that was your only reason for doing it, don't do that. That would be dumb. But the fact of the matter is that because of these first two main reasons, narratively, it would have been a mistake to bring Doctor Strange in. It was the right thing. Look, guys, we all got to accept moving forward. We have this discussion on here all the time, Rob, that every single time there's a Marvel or a DC movie, why didn't everybody else in the Justice League show up? Why didn't all the other Avengers come? It's always with every single MCU thing. We just have to accept that they set up these stories so these individual characters can have their stories. So, Rob, to me, while I think it just proves once again why Kevin Feige is the smartest guy in the room. That's just what it proves to me again. Anyway, Rob, you had a chance to see these comments. What did you make of them?
Well, what's really interesting is his comment is answering what the critics would have said.
Yes.
You know, that's what he's doing. He himself is not coming out with some kind of doctrine saying that, well, we're against having a white male savior in this story. He's just saying that I already know what the criticisms would have been. And like you pointed out, John, very astutely, it would have totally taken away from Wanda's story. I mean, if you have Doctor Strange here the whole time, it's like, oh, this poor girl, she needs Stephen Strange to come in and solve her problems for her. And I think that that it would have been a valid criticism. I don't think anyone would have liked the ending. Do I think WandaVision has a perfect ending? I do not. But if they just threw in Doctor Strange, I would have felt it was sort of a betrayal of what happens. I mean, you know, it's like in real life, John. You have lots of friends. They're scattered all over the world. And whenever something happens to you or you don't involve all of your friends or all of your coworkers in everything that you do. And I find it strange, like you pointed out, why didn't the Avengers show up? We don't even know the status of the last time we saw the Avengers. Their base was rubble. You know, some of them were dead and everyone's scattered to the four winds. And we don't know anything about where the Avengers are. Maybe they were in no position to show up. Who knows where Doctor Strange is after we've lost the Infinity Stones in our universe, and there's all kinds of Mordo is still out there. It's not like he doesn't have better things to do. And remember, WandaVision took place over the course of just a few days. And it's not like this whole thing, the world at large knew about this. It was.
By the way, Rob, I just want to interrupt you just for a second, just to really emphasize how smart of a thing you just said. That is so key what you just said, that everybody loses sight of this. This isn't like Falcon the Winter Soldier that literally takes place over the scope of months. This was a story that took place within a scope of a couple of days. And I just think that was a really, really good point that you made.
You know, it's not like, well, this town's been encased in this mystical bubble for months. What's happening? You know, it's not like that. I mean, this probably took place in less time than that ship that was locked in the Suez Canal for like a week. You know, they finally moved it out of there. And how many of us went and visited that? So I just think that it was, you just need to remember that. And not everything is happening all the time. People have their own lives. And when we see these films, we're seeing specific incidents. But if you think about the way you lead your lives, sometimes months go by before you see your friends, or years. So it's not like where's the who are you going to call now if you need the Avengers? You can't call Black Widow. You can't call Steve Rogers. Who do you call? Is there a receptionist? That base doesn't even exist anymore. So I don't know. I think what Kevin Feige is saying, I think we all need to take a deep breath before we jump online and like, oh my God, Kevin Feige's he's saying that we can't have white men be heroes anymore. Sure we can. He made how many movies that show that? I don't think he's being political. I think he's actually addressing the critics that would have pounced all over them if they did what they were going to, if they had Doctor Strange show up as literally a Deus Ex Machina at the end.
I saw one thing that was basically saying this is proof that Kevin Feige wants the systematic destruction of white male culture and blah, blah, blah. And again, we go back to just that number. All right. Marvel, again, has done 25 stories so far, counting movies and Disney Plus show. Let's say 26 if you want to say, since Loki is only 1 month away. Let's say 26.
27 because Black Widow's done.
Well, Black Widow's done, coming out in June, so we'll go 27. Let's say 27. So we got Loki, Black Widow, and then the rest. So we got 27. 24, 23 of the 27 are white male leads. 23 out of the 27 are white male leads. Tell me again how Kevin Feige has a bias against white men when 23 out of the 27 have been. I'm not saying, again, I'm just saying that it's clear that he clearly doesn't have a problem doing stories with white male leads. That is clearly not the issue. And there's a lot of narrative spinning out there right now trying to say that that's what's at hand here, that Kevin Feige he hates the idea of having white male leads. 23 out of the 27 that we've got on the books right now have been white male leads. So clearly facts are not in the corner of that. But now, Rob, it's still open for debate about whether or not Kevin Feige is correct. He usually is, about the fact that Doctor Strange showing up would have taken away from Wanda, or the fact that having Doctor Strange show up just would have made WandaVision a prequel to Doctor Strange 2. And you can have that debate. I mean, that's up for interpretation, all that kind of stuff. You can have that debate. I personally think Feige's right in that. But it's the other thing that everybody else seems to be latching on. It's despite the fact that it flies in the face of all actual logic. But it is what it is. Question is for you guys. What did you think about this whole hubbubaloo going on right now? Jump on down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With that down and out of the way, let's move on now and start taking your live questions that you guys have been firing. And we want to hear what you guys have to say. Once again, if you want to get in a live question on the show, simply use the tip link down in the description of this video, or enter it in manually at www.streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You're getting your comment or question read on a show if it's appropriate for a show. And of course, you're supporting our channel while you do it. And all of us involved here at the show, thank you guys for that support. Okay, let's get on over and start seeing what you guys have to say. Remy writes in, "Hey, John and Co. One of two. Well, fudge me. This Marvel teaser brought tears to my eyes. It reminded me that the last film I saw in a cinema was The Invisible Man. What a great movie that was, too. I love that movie. And that here in the UK, theaters are still closed, but set to reopen on the 17th. I cannot wait. Marvel seems more than ever dedicated to the theatrical releases of its film projects, and I can't praise them enough for it. Using Stan Lee's amazing speech and Endgame fan reaction was the perfect way to remind us about why we need the theatrical experience. I completely agree, Remy. And look, Rob, I said this before. I get it. You know, some people want to watch movies at home. That's cool. You know, I watched Without Remorse at home. Fine. But the magic of the movies, which I think that Marvel spot exhibited so perfectly with Stan Lee's words and everything. The magic of the movies is when you're there in that theater with all these other fans who are your brothers and your sisters, and you're watching these things and experiencing these things together. That's the magic. And that's what that spot that, Rob, you were saying it brought you to tears. It had tears welling up in my eyes too. Like 24 hours later, what's your ruminations on that Marvel spot that dropped yesterday?
Well, it's so funny because I've read things like online, people like, this was so manipulative. And I'm like, yes, it was. I mean, it was designed using Stan Lee's voice, showing all these clips. I mean, that's what a trailer's supposed to do. It's supposed to manipulate you, like all good advertising, to desperately want to see all the rest of the product that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has coming down the road. And it was very well done. And to me, I like the MCU. We are clearly in a backlash against the MCU now. You know, people are like, well, the Infinity Saga is over. What are you going to show me now? What are you going to give me now? It's so funny how we just dismiss. It's not like everybody objected to Infinity War and Endgame. People had lots of fun with that movie. I loved it. I watched those two movies with a huge smile on my face. I think that trailer did exactly what it was supposed to do. And for people who said that, oh, Marvel's really milking it with Stan Lee, I'm like, Stan Lee milked Stan Lee. I mean, the whole point was that his legacy is they're using. Stan Lee went into his 90s promoting these things. And remember, I mean, it's not like he's Gandhi. He was a comic book writer. He was the editor of Marvel. Like, to see what he and Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko and all the other people at Marvel created, to see it where it's been taken, where the visions of these guys who were working in the Marvel bullpen, and to see what it's become. What's not to celebrate? It's an amazing feat. It's an amazing example of American pop art being relevant again decades after it was originally created. What is not to love? I mean, we live now in such a cynical society that people are like, well, I like them. Now they're just using Stan Lee to milk it all. I'm like, what's wrong? He's the one guy you should be using to milk it, because he created half of this stuff and he's been there for what, 6-7 decades with Marvel. I mean, it's crazy. I loved it.
You know, it reminded me too, when I was watching that Endgame scene, it reminded me of this. It was the second time I saw Batman versus Superman, because the first time I saw it, I got to see it on Warner Brothers lot, and that was fine. That was I enjoyed the movie. It was a fine experience. But then I went to an early fan experience viewing at the AMC Burbank 16, and packed house, and Batman versus Superman was playing. And I will tell you what, when Batman and Superman were having their fight, you could tell who in the crowd was team Superman and who in the crowd was team Batman. It was an NFL football like environment, because when the fight started, everybody in that theater was like, wow. When Superman would land a shot, you'd hear the Superman, yeah. When Batman would get in a shot, yeah. You know, like, it was just like this crazy environment. I'm like, F watching this at home. This is where to be. And I think Stan Lee, the words of Stan Lee really highlighted that, and I think it was a great spot for that. So anyway, all right, thanks a lot for writing that in, Remy. Next up, we've got John's famous twin writes, hey, John, have you seen The Crown on Netflix? I think it's amazing acting. The Crown on Netflix, listen, that is a show that did not look like it was for me at all. And then my wife got me into the first couple. I still haven't seen the last season that they did. But I watched the first couple of seasons, and I'm like, this is actually really good. And you're right. The acting in it is absolutely phenomenal. They've won tons of Emmys. It is really, really good stuff. Even though it doesn't look like it's made for somebody like me, I thoroughly enjoy The Crown, like very, very much. And I got to get on the last season. All right, next up, Minnesota hockey fan. Listen, going back, one of my favorite players, Minnesota hockey fans, going back to when I was a little kid, when it was still the Minnesota North Stars, was Dino Ciccarelli. Remember Dino Ciccarelli? Kudos to anybody in the live chat who remembers Dino Ciccarelli. Anyway, hey, John, I'm a big fan of the show. Thank you so much. I recently watched a micro-budget film called Northwood Pie. I really liked it. It had a Clerks and Swingers vibe, but takes place at a pizza shop. What are some of your tiny budget movies? Mine are Clerks and Following. Yeah, the Following was like really, really good. Listen, I don't want to sound stereotypical, but the original Blair Witch Project, as much as it's kind of now like the butt end of a lot of jokes and it's a stereotypical thing, I still remember the very first time I watched the first Blair Witch Project. I was really blown away by how they were able to put together such a great narrative. It's the movie to me, Rob, that still reminds me, you don't need a big budget to tell a great story. You might be limited in things you can do in that story, but you don't need a big budget to tell a great story. Kevin Smith is a great example of that in his filmmaking. But honestly, as kind of it's the butt end of the joke now. It's a punchline kind of a way, but that first Blair Witch Project to me is one that still really stands out. Rob, what about you is a great example of micro filmmaking that really stands out to you?
Oh, we're going to cover it on our YouTube show, Elizaviews. But it would be one of the great time traveling movies ever made. It was made for $30,000, and it's called Primer.
Oh, I love Primer.
I'm telling you, if you haven't seen Primer and you like time travel movies, it is one of the most, John, it was one of the first movies ever in my life. Well, not first, but one of the movies in my life where I watched it once and immediately started it over and watched it again.
And there's so many parts in Primer, you got to go, wait a minute, and like rewind 20 or 30 seconds. Say, what? It's like, it's a mind F. It's totally a mind F.
Yes. And it was made for like $30,000, and it just came out on Blu-ray from Arrow, along with director Shane Carruth's other movie, Upstream Color. And that to me is one of the most, and it's the most lo-fi time travel movie you'll ever see. There's no visual effects in it at all. And it would make a great double bill with a Spanish time travel movie called Time Crimes, which starts with a guy in his backyard seeing somebody in the woods. And let me tell you, both of those movies will blow your mind.
All right. Good question, man. Next up, we go to MD, who writes, seeing the title The Marvels makes me continue to speculate that the Avengers, at least in name, are no more and will get smaller teams in the MCU, example, Thunderbolts, Young Avengers, etc., which could help move us on from the Infinity Saga. Just a theory. I see what you're saying, MD, and I don't, it's good logic, but there is a special place in the movie fan insane asylum, MD, for people who don't think Marvel at some point is going to do Avengers 5. You know, actually, Kevin Feige was just recently even kind of referencing it a little bit. These are the biggest movies of all time. Like, that's not to say they can't do these smaller ones. Absolutely. But doing Avengers movies is just printing money. It is the crescendo of building up things. It's what people get really excited about. And then the energy and the enthusiasm from the Avengers movies then powers and feeds all the films that come later on. So I got to say, I think the chances of not getting an Avengers 5 by like 2024 or 2025 is zero. Like absolute zero. They're definitely going to do. I don't know, Rob, what do you think about that?
I think it's probably absolute zero too. I mean, yes, I think exactly correct.
Now, MD, I think everything else you said is bang on. I think they are going to try to do some other things. I didn't believe in the Thunderbolts before. Captain America and the Winter Soldier have kind of made me go, well, you know what? Maybe they will. So you could be bang on about that, but believe that there's going to be an Avengers 5.
Oh, dude, come on. I mean, you just go by, forget the MCU. Just think about Hollywood math. You've got 4 Avengers movies, and all they gross. They're 4 of the highest grossing movies ever made, and they just. I mean, that kind of success rate. You know what? The inevitability of Avengers 5, and I'll go further, John. 5, 6, 7, and 8. I mean, this is as sure as death and taxes.
Yeah, and again, that it's not an either or situation. Right? It's not an either or. It's not either they do Avengers 5 or they do these other things. I think they will do both to some degree. To some degree, they'll do both. But yeah, I think we're absolutely, you're definitely going to get Avengers 5. All right. Next up, we've got Crash Dummy X writes, I went to see a movie for the first time last week after being fully vaccinated. I got emotional and started to tear up during the trailers because I was so happy to be back in the theaters. Thank you for having such a positive movie-loving community. All right, thanks. Hey, listen, Crash Dummy, I remember my first time back in the theater after about 6 months, I think, was when I literally got in a car and drove to the closest open movie theater in Las Vegas so I could go see New Mutants. And I actually recorded myself walking into the theater. I put the video up on my channel too. It was, I knew I would be happy going back to the theaters, but I walked into that theater and I was not prepared for the emotional reaction I had. Like, me and my buddy Soul walked into that theater after a 3.5 hour drive to get to Vegas just so we could watch this one movie and turn around and drive 3.5 hours back. But I was really kind of shook. Like, it just felt like coming home. It was just so good. By the way, our good friend, the Canadian Singing Postie, sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thanks, man. I appreciate that, dude. Rob, you haven't had a chance yet to go back to the theaters, but
nope.
But you know, you've started your vaccination process, but you know, what do you think your reaction is going to be going back into one of those theaters?
I believe it's going to feel like going back to your childhood home that you've left for a long time.
Yeah.
And memories will be filling your head. You know, like I can't wait. I can't wait.
All right. Next up, we go to Mike, who writes, John, do you think that Dr. Mephisto and the multiverse of Mephisto will help Ryan Coogler set up Black Panther 2, i.e. obtaining a Killmonger that grew up to be Black Panther? Also, when will we see Mephisto for the first time in the MCU? Yeah, everything has become about Mephisto. I remember somebody sent me this great graphic before Falcon the Winter Soldier started, and it was all perfect. It was perfect art in the Falcon and Winter Soldier font. It was Mephisto and the Winter Mephisto. It was like, oh, great. But don't laugh. Like, the idea that Killmonger can come back and become Black Panther is moronic. We've gone over that so many times about why. I said it before. I will say it again. A little bit of hyperbole, and Hitler comparisons are always the weakest ones. But the only difference between Killmonger and Hitler was that Hitler didn't have a King T'Challa there to stop him. That's the only difference. But somebody put up a great theory the other day, Rob, that, again, Michael B. Jordan himself put out a quote saying he's not coming back as Killmonger, so he's kind of squashed that. But a theory of, what if in a timeline variance, somebody after, Killmonger's dad was killed, somebody quickly went back in time and took that young Killmonger before he became really embittered and really angry about how rough life would been, and he was just raised as a good kid, and then that version of Killmonger was then brought into this timeline, and then this good version of this kid who's grown up in a loving Wakanda and all that kind of stuff was able to be Black Panther 2. To which I said, you know what? That I could see happening. That's actually not a bad story explanation for how something like that could happen. I'm not saying that's what they're going to do. I don't think they're going to do that. But that would be, to me, a good narrative explanation about how a non-viciously evil Killmonger could be brought back in to maybe assume the throne and the title of Black Panther. That could work. I don't know, Rob, what do you think about that theory?
Look, I think it's out there, and Michael B. Jordan is a movie star. But on the other hand, every time they would do something like this in the Marvel universe, I think it stretches the credulity of the universe. Then nothing has consequences. I mean, we always talk about the fake death Marvel universe, but if you start replacing characters, it's a shortcut. I think you're undercutting, because we already know Killmonger, so we have Michael B. Jordan. Let's make him a good version. I would much rather see a brand new character earn his way or her way into the position so we can have gone on the journey with that character together. The audience will get to know them all at once. You're not taking another character and subverting a character or changing them just to give us somebody we already know. As with great storytelling, give us a new character, give us a great story, and we will go along for the ride.
I agree. All right, let's move on to the next one here. And our next one comes to us from Preston, who writes, where is Preston? There he is. Have you seen the HBO new series, The Nevers? Just saw the first 3 episodes and I'm hooked. I enjoy the unexpected humor they add as well. It feels like if the X-Men were created by Charles Dickens. Rob, we've talked about this a couple times. When that first trailer came out for The Nevers, I mean, obviously I have been a big Joss Whedon fan of his work for a very, very long time, going all the way, obviously, you're going back to the original television stuff, obviously Serenity, Firefly, and the Avengers is still my favorite comic book movie of all time. Very disappointed to hear about all the other shit that's gone on that we've been hearing coming out, but we're not here to address that right now. We've talked about that before. But when that Nevers trailer came out, our reaction was, okay, it looks interesting. I mean, it didn't quite look for me. I got to tell you, Ann and I have been watching it. It's become part of our weekly watch rotation, and I've really enjoyed it. There was last week's episode was actually really killer. There was this very creative water fight. I won't say anything more for those of you who haven't watched it yet to spoil it, but there was a fight in the water that was really creative that I've never really seen done that way before. And there was this ending of the episode with this song that I thought was incredibly powerful. Look, I don't know if this is going to fall off a bridge pretty quick, but I've actually really been enjoying The Nevers, like more than I thought that I would. And I know my wife is completely hooked on it too right now. Rob, I don't know if you've had a chance to check out the show yet or not. What are your thoughts?
I haven't, but Elizabeth has, and I've walked in. I mean, I think, look, I haven't sat down and watched a whole episode, but I've watched a little bit of it. It's very sumptuously produced. I like the characters from what I've seen, and obviously it was done It was done with this. It's a beautiful production, so it makes sense to me that it's good. I mean, the pedigree is certainly there.
All I can tell you, for those of you who haven't watched it, is one of the not A-list main characters, but one of the major significant characters in the show. His whole thing is he's setting up a big underground sex club, and I'm like, well, I'm sold, because bring on the filthy. I love it. All right, next up, we've got that was Preston. Next up, we have the Wakandan Forever writes, "Hey, John. I give you the Wakandan perspective. Now I need your help. One of my favorite films growing up was White Men Can't Jump with Woody Harrelson. I love Snipes. First time I saw Woody and Rosie was outrageous. Real question, would it get greenlit under that name today?" That's, Rob, a lot of times questions get brought up about, because like I hear a lot of people say, oh, The Office couldn't be done today. I disagree. I think they would do The Office today, because the way they handle it. Because listen, if Tosh.0 can do what he does, The Office could have been done. I think it can be. Could White Men Can't Jump? Yeah, because listen, there's a, what's the word I'm looking for? There's a satire in the title itself. And so, yeah, I think they could do White Men Can't Jump today. I don't know, Rob, what do you think?
I think they could too. I mean, I find it so strange. I feel like there's a real level of immaturity surrounding all of this. Like, we can't offend. Where do people believe that we're going to live in some utopian civilization where nobody's going to be offended by anything? That isn't life. That's not what the world is. I mean, the world exists to have all these things happen. And I don't know what people think, that they're going to live in a perfect civilization where you're going to walk around every day and not feel anything bad or feel anything that offends them. And the fact of the matter is, I have seen it, John. I played basketball when I was a kid in school. I was on the boys club basketball team. And there were times when I have to admit, white men can't jump. It happens. I mean, if you're outside of the key and you're trying to do a jump shot and hit that 3-pointer at the buzzer, well, not every white man hits that every time they get up there to throw that ball in the air. And I mean, it's like, it's a funny thing. Like, it's a put down. Can we not people talk smack about one another all the time? It's a part of sports. It's something that's understood. Are we going to say that, we can't talk smack on the playing field anymore because, God forbid, we might hurt someone's feelings? Yes, that's the point. You're supposed to try and hurt their feelings to get in their head, so they'll make a mistake, so you can beat them. I mean, and by the way, do we want to live in a world like that?
Dude.
Somebody said to me that, when are they going to change the title of Snow White and the Seven Dwarves to Snow White and the height challenged individuals? I mean, come on.
This is I don't know if you've ever looked this stuff up, because I know you're not a huge sports guy, but my wife and I went on this rabbit hole the other day of watching these Larry Bird videos. And for those of you who are like under 20, 25, maybe under 25, you may not know Larry Bird, one of the absolute greatest basketball players of all time.
Yep.
But we found this video on YouTube of like Charles.
By the way, who's also like the definition of white man.
Oh yeah. Like completely. Like he is as Caucasian as it gets. But these videos of like Charles Barkley and Oakley and Michael Jordan, like talking about Larry Bird. And they say like he was the most dominant trash talker of all time. Like what's his name? Like Charles Barkley was talking about this man. He came over to our bench and he said, I'm going to go over there. I'm going to get the ball inbounded from there. I'm going to go to that spot and I'm going to hit a jumper over your head and I'm going to win the game. And that mother effer got the ball, went to exactly where he said he was going to go, hit the shot and won the game. But he said he was the ultimate trash talker. But one of the best examples of that was, I think it was also Charles Barkley who's talking about it. He went over to Barkley. It was going into the fourth quarter, and he goes over to Barkley because they had assigned this other player to guard him, right? And it was a white dude that they put on guarding Larry Bird. And Larry Bird goes over to Barkley and their bench. He goes, "You guys are disrespecting me." And they're like, "What are you talking about? You put the white guy on me? He's like one of the best Larry Bird stories. You put the white guy on me trying to defend me? That's disrespectful. It's just one of the greatest things. Anyway, just the question kind of made me think about it. Seriously, it's a dangerous rabbit hole, guys, but just look up great Larry Bird stories on YouTube. It's some of the funniest, and Charles Barkley is like one of the best storytellers in all of sports, but he's kind of the Kevin Smith of the sports world in telling stories. Anyway, all right. Anyway, so sorry, let's move on here. Next up, we've got Jacob who writes, Simpsons movie 2 or South Park sequel, both profitable and cheapish to produce. Well, you know, I think it was Matt Groening who does The Simpsons. He said he will never do another Simpsons movie until the show is over. Because I remember he did this big thing about it was just impossible. He said we were killing ourselves. And by the way, Mr. Seanma sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Mr. Seanma. He said it was just it nearly killed us trying to do the movie while we were also doing the show at the same time. And then I think Seth, what Seth MacFarlane said kind of a similar thing about Family Guy, about, you know, he really hesitates doing a Family Guy movie while he's also trying to do the show. So, and The Simpsons is probably going to run for another 50 years at this rate. So my guess would probably be, but you know what, Rob, I'll say this. I don't need another South Park movie as long as they keep putting out those games. Because guys, like South Park, like the Stick of Truth and things like that, these games and One Butthole, what's it called again? What's the name of the game? Guys in the live chat, help me out again. What's the name of the One Butthole or the Crack Butthole or whatever it's called? So you got the Stick of Truth, and then you have this superhero one. Stick of Truth was just kind of a Game of Thrones spoof, and then they had the superhero spoof one. Was Fractured Butthole. Thank you, Maurice. That was it. The literal name is Fractured Butt Hole. But of course, it says out Fractured Butthole. Anyway, these games are so freaking funny. Like I remember Anne picked up the Stick of Truth, and so she was playing it, and I would literally just grab a bag of popcorn, sit down, and watch Anne play and laugh my ass off for hours. So I don't even need South Park to make more movies. Just keep making more of these games because, Rob, they are comedic gold. Gold, I'm telling you. All right. Next up, Suthius writes, yeah, Without Remorse is not good. A lot of scenes where it was just too dark, even with brightness up 100%. Yeah, that was a bit of a problem too. Also, many times when ambient noise, background noise, and score would just drop into silence. Not sure it was intended, but just bad audio mixing. Yeah, I got to agree with you on that too. There's just the finer points, the little details of filmmaking were also problematic. There was a lot of times where the sound mix too was just like, ambient sound was drowning out the audio mix of the dialogue. I was like, what? And there were a couple of times I had to turn on the subtitles just to make sure I was catching what was being said. So even on that level, Suthius, I think you're right. They just did a bad job with it. All right, Jacob writes, hi, I was wondering, due to the success of the Snyder Cut and Flash coming soon, could we see different DC Universe movies at the same time? And if so, could we see Zack keep making his DC movies? And I know his are expensive, but keep them HBO Max exclusive only. No, I mean, look, can we see different universe stuff? Yes, they've already proved that with Joker. And they've proved that again with Matt Reeves's and Robert Pattinson's Batman. That's in a separate reality. That's a separate thing altogether. As far as the Snyder thing goes, no, they're not going to make $200 million movies on a regular for streaming. And, you know, they've already said they've moved on from Snyderverse. Zack Snyder has directly said he has no plans to make any more movies. So, no, so they're moving on from that. Other universe stuff, absolutely. But both Warner Brothers and Zack Snyder have said they're moving on. Again, that's not my opinion. I'm just telling you what they've said. So you can take issue with them if you have a problem with that. All right, next up. Jack Master Nord writes, pronounced no red. Okay, no red. I say Nord, no red. Hey guys, I don't think M'Baku could be the next Black Panther because if I'm not mistaken, all of the other Black Panthers were part of T'Challa's bloodline. What are your thoughts on this? Well, if you understand in the MCU, Rob, tell me what you think about this. If you understand in the MCU, the way things can be challenged for the throne, it's not one bloodline. It's not one bloodline. The way the Wakandan culture is that anybody that's of a higher seat and authority within the certain tribes can come and make claim to the throne and then have mortal combat to get the throne. Not exactly a great form of government, but whatever. That is Wakanda. So yes, if you understand that, hey, just like that, M'Baku could have been the royal bloodline had he won that fight. And he came that close to winning that fight. So you have to assume throughout the thousands of year history in the MCU, if every time a new king was coronated, other members from other tribes were able to come in and stake a claim and fight to the death for it, somebody else along the lines has shifted. It's probably shifted several times. Just like, Rob, the what's Queen Elizabeth's actual name again? What's the name of her family? Oh, I'm freezing on the name. If Anne was here, she could tell me. But Elizabeth's family, like, it's been moved around because, of like brothers stepping down and abdicating and then other things like throughout history. The Windsors. Thank you, Edison. The Windsors. That's their family.
I didn't know where you were going with that, but I was thinking about something totally different than the Windsors.
I was going to say, of course, and she said it was a Mountbatten in there too. But, he easily could have done that. And then he would have been king. He would have been king of Wakanda, and his is the royal line. So it really depends on how, I don't know, Rob, when you look at how they've kind of described the who ascends to head of government and who can be Black Panther, is there anything that's like, how would you answer that? M'Baku, it seems to me that the MCU was saying M'Baku very literally could have become king and become Black Panther. I don't know. How do you see it?
Well, I think absolutely. I mean, he's already kind of a king of his part of Wakanda.
Yeah.
He's already a leader, so I think I mean, it depends, because does the Black Panther have to be king, or can the Black Panther, like, obviously I'm not well versed in the political machinations of Wakanda, but I mean, I know the Black Panther, could it be one or the other? Could M'Baku become the king of Wakanda and have someone else be Black Panther?
Yes, because remember, while T'Chaka was Black Panther and king, at some point he passed on the Black Panther mantle for his son to be Black Panther while T'Chaka was still king.
But there's still that bloodline, like, depending on how they go with it. I mean, wouldn't it be interesting if they made M'Baku king of Wakanda, but we have a new character? That's the whole thing. Maybe M'Baku can't, for whatever reason, be Black Panther, and they have to search for a new one.
But remember, in the first Black Panther movie, the whole thing was Nakia, her plan was to take the last heart herb and give it to M'Baku to take, so he could take on the powers of the Black Panther and hopefully defeat, I mean, that was their plan at any rate, to defeat Killmonger. And I have lost my question stream. I'll have to get that back. But Rob, we've taken you over time. Rob, thanks again for being here today, man. We'll see you again tomorrow. But in the meantime, where can people follow you and all of your greatness online?
You can find me on Instagram at Robert Meyer Burnett. Find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, or find me on my own YouTube channel, The Burnett Work. All
right, man. Thanks a lot for being here. Good to have you here, and we'll talk to you again soon. Have a good one, man.
All right. I'll see you later.
Ladies and gentlemen, the great Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. And we still have some time here. We're going to keep going with your questions. Just give me a second here, because I got to find where we left off, because for some inexplicable reason, my stream elements crapped out, but we're back here. Okay. So the Suthius, Jacob, Jack Master, No Red, Ben Rayner. Okay, here we are. Yes, Ben Rayner, who tips in like $20. Thank you, Ben, for supporting our channel on that level, man. Appreciate that. Ben Rayner writes, "Hey, John, I know you don't do comic book rankings, and I'm not asking you to. I just wanted to share my top 4. Number 1, Logan, Joker, and Man of Steel, and Batman Begins. I love these 4 movies. Hope you're doing well, and thank you for the great content. Bring on the filthy." No, those are great. My 3, like, to me, the 3 greatest comic book movies of all time, and I won't give these in any particular order, although to me the first Avengers movie for many reasons is still the greatest comic book movie ever made. But other than Avengers, I'll say the other 2 in no particular order in the top 3 are The Dark Knight and Logan. Like, to me, That's just the triumphant of the greatest examples of comic book movies to me. Dark Knight, Avengers, Logan, they're just astounding. That's just how good Logan is. And so I could totally see a lot of people having Logan as their number one of all time. And it is funny to me, actually, that there are a lot of people, I mean, not the majority, but there are a lot of the people where Batman Begins or The Dark Knight isn't even some people's favorite Christopher Nolan Batman film. There's a bunch of people out there that Batman Begins is actually their favorite Nolan Batman film, which is really interesting. But that's the great thing about the genre, man. There's just so many great films to really latch onto. So thanks for sharing your list with us, Ben. I appreciate that, dude. All right, next up. Wakanda Forever writes, I could not have said it better myself. Wakanda Forever. Thanks for that, man. I think you're referring to something I said on yesterday's show. So thanks for that. Sam Weiser Gamgee writes, hey, I like that name. Hey, John, Nomadland is proof of the subjectivity of film. I was expecting to be wowed. My response was, meh. Much as I love Mrs. McDormand, she has now reached that rarefied Academy air where all she has to do is poop in a bucket and win an Oscar. Well, no, not really. But listen, Nomadland is not a film for everybody. There's no denying that. It's not for everyone. Like, it is a very introspective, character-driven kind of an observation of a subculture of American life that I just think I was enamored with it. Like, the moment that movie started, I was just glued to my screen. Like, I was just absolutely glued to it. I could not look away. It was just, when you can tell such a powerful, compelling story of basically a woman in a van, like struggling to get by, living a certain type of lifestyle that has become a part of American culture. It's just fascinating to me. And you really get into the shoes of their life. But that kind of movie is not for everybody. No movie is for everybody. And you're right, man. Listen, I don't expect everybody to love Nomadland the way I did. And you didn't. And that is a great example of the subjectivity of film. It doesn't mean you're wrong or I'm right. It just means that art hits us in different ways. And that was a movie that hit you in a different way. To me, it was an unbelievable, like very few actresses, very few, maybe 10 in the world could have pulled off that role the way Frances McDormand did. Maybe 10 on the planet could have done it. But again, it's all subjective. And I think your point is well made, sir. All right, next up. Ryan Lohner writes, one big sign of how great Shawshank is, absolutely nobody cares how Andy put the poster back up from inside the tunnel. You know what? I've never thought about that. I mean, obviously he had to figure out a way to do it, right? If Andy was going to escape, and I won't go into detail because I know Shawshank is an older movie. Some of you haven't seen it, but you should. It is one, if you call yourself a movie fan, it's all subjective, but you at least have to watch it to know if you love it or not. It is I believe, one of the 5 best movies ever made in the history of mankind. It is a perfect film. And because all film is subjective, you may not love it if you watch it, but you've got to at least watch it. But you have to assume, when you understand how long Andy planned this thing out, that he had to have come up with a way to do that with the poster. Again, we won't talk about what he does with the poster, but he would have had to have figured it out. But that is I hadn't even thought about it, Ryan, but that is a great thing to bring up. Okay, let's see. Mars Axe writes, John, love the show. Thank you so much, man. And the crew. First time chiming in. I was bored and went Wikipedia surfing and ended up on Matt Reeves's page. I never noticed how much of a history the guy has with J.J. Abrams. Yeah, you go all the way back to like the first Cloverfield and stuff like that. Since they were 13, a coincidence with all J.J. is doing? I don't know what you mean by that, with a coincidence with all J.J. is doing. Yeah, but listen, there are a lot of guys in Hollywood that, when you travel in certain circles are only so big. So there's a really good chance you've come across and been a part of those circles with people. Christopher Reeve has a lot of stories, so like even like who his roommate was. I think wasn't Robin Williams and Christopher Reeve? Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I think like earlier in their lives, I think Robin Williams and Christopher Reeves were like roommates, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, as a matter of fact, I was just listening to I was going through an audiobook of Joe Coy, the comedian, basically giving his life story. And he was talking about how like him and Tiffany Haddish were like young struggling comedians at the same time. And like Tiffany Haddish was like broken living out of her car, and Joe Coy would use some of whatever money he had to bring hot dogs to her when they were doing comedy shows so she would have something to eat. And it's like, it's just really cool hearing these stories about people in entertainment who like who actually go back and have connections going back a long way. I just love those stories. I just think those stories are really great. Anyway, next up, where'd we go? That was Mars. Next up, Ryan G writes, "Hey, John, happy May the 4th be with you, and May the 4th be with you, Ryan. What do you think of The Bad Batch, and are you going to watch more of it? Do you like this better than Clone Wars TV show?" I will say this. I think Bad Batch, I mentioned this a little bit earlier in the show, and I'll say this again. Sorry, this is actually rather an important one. I got to keep my eyes on it. Okay. It's, if the show goes more along the lines of episode 1, I think it could be in pretty good shape. I'm not a big fan of episode 2, and I know you guys haven't had a chance to see episode 2 yet, but the name of the episode is called Cut and Run. So you'll see it next week. But I was impressed with episode 1. I mean, not super impressed. It wasn't great, but it was much better than I thought it would be. And so, yes, I think episode 1, but I can't say it's better than the Clone Wars TV show because I've only seen 2 episodes. Right? You can't pronounce something better than something else that ran 7 seasons, yay or nay, after just 2 episodes. But I will just say that I think it's off to a pretty good start. I think it's off to a pretty good start, which I'm totally shocked to hear myself say that, but it's true. I thought it's off to a pretty good start. All right, next up, Dominic Suma writes, "Hey, John, a longtime viewer and also an Inland Empire resident. I now live in Riverside in the Inland Empire. Thanks for that, man. Welcome. Seeing Kumail Nanjiani in the Eternal sneak peek reminded me of the hardest I've ever laughed at something in a movie. It was his 9/11 joke in his great film, The Big Sick." Dude, that joke, I thought I was going to pass out. I thought I was going to pass out. I laughed so hard at that joke. The Big Sick for me was a revelation of Kumail Nanjiani. It was that one movie and that one movie alone that made me an instant fan of this dude. First of all, for those of you who don't know, The Big Sick is actually a true story about Kumail Nanjiani and his wife and how they got together and this big traumatic thing they went through and all kinds. It's basically a true story, their own true story. So it's fantastic, but I want to tell you the joke, the 9/11 joke he does, but oh my God, I was so shocked and stunned, and I literally thought I was going to pass out from laughing. It was just so freaking good. If you have not seen The Big Sick, guys, watch The Big Sick. It is so great. Anyway, you also got Hunter is in it, and you've got Ray Romano is in it. He plays Kumail's father-in-law in it. The whole cast is terrific. You got to go check it out. Anyway, next up. Timothy writes, "John, Tenet is on HBO Max now, and I rewatched it since seeing it in September, this time with subtitles, thinking they would help me have a better understanding of the movie, and I still didn't get it. LOL. Well, still riding the Nolan train regardless." Yeah, I still haven't. Listen, I've said for a long time, I need to sit down and watch Tenet again, but I need to watch it with subtitles on. Not because I couldn't understand the meaning of what they were saying, but just because the sound mix in the movie was so bad, half the time I couldn't hear what they were saying. And I know that there are scenes in the movie that we're not supposed to be able to hear what they're saying. I understand that. But I'm talking, there are other points in that movie where we are supposed to be able to hear what they're saying, and I couldn't hear what they were saying. So I still got to go back and watch Tenet again with the subtitles on. So anyway, thanks for sharing your experience, Timothy. Next up, Ant from Cali writes, "Hello, John. I'm so excited for the MCU Phase 4. The only movie I didn't see was a new Avenger movie. Since Fantastic Four was teased at the end, do you think the Fantastic Four movie will be where the heroes come together like the Avengers movies? Thanks." If you're talking about like all the other ones, no. If anything, I think Fantastic Four, I mean, look, the whole story of the Fantastic Four is that these characters all already know each other, right? Like the story of the Fantastic Four is that they all already go way back, you know? Richards and Grimm, they go way back. Sue and Johnny, they're siblings, whether adopted or by birth, whichever way they decide to go with it in the movies. So there's already that. So I think my guess is, and it's just a guess, my guess is pure speculation, pulling this out of my ass. My guess is when Fantastic Four eventually does happen and it starts, it's going to start with the four characters all already knowing each other. That's going to be my guess. I don't think it's going to be like Guardians of the Galaxy where they're all four different individuals and they all meet and get together and blah, blah, blah. I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to start the movie with the four of them already knowing each other and then moving forward from there. So that's my guess. Don't know. Maybe yes, maybe no. But that's what I think. I don't think they'll have their powers already. Like, this is a new incarnation of the MCU. They got to give them a story for how they get their powers, but I think the four of them already know each other. We'll find out. I might be right. I might be wrong. I might even change my mind in a few days, but we'll see where they go. All right, thanks for that, Ant. Next up, Jesse writes, one of two. If there's any indication of how much I love Marvel and the movie theaters, I'm seriously considering postponing a surgery I have scheduled for later this year so I can be at the theater for Shang-Chi, Eternals, and No Way Home. Dude, preach. I'm completely there with you, because if the surgery is going to knock you on your ass for a number of months, you won't be able to go to the movies. You might want to wait till you have a chance to watch a couple, depending on how serious the surgery is. I mean, get that shit looked after if you need to, but I'm totally there with you, man. I'm totally there with you. I've done some crazy things to move things around and go out of my way to make sure I could go to see a movie. So maybe irresponsible things, yes, but hey, man, follow what you love, dude. Follow what you love. 2 of 2, that video Marvel put out about celebrating the movies is probably my favorite marketing I've seen from Marvel. I agree. It was absolutely beautiful. A simple little video gave me tears in my eyes, and a full year into no big screen. I can't imagine missing these films in theaters. Yeah, I get you, man. I totally get you. And again, that little stupid trailer spot, it really did. It got me emotional. Here in Stanley, there's nothing I love more than being with people. And, then showing the Avengers stuff. I mean, it was just so well crafted. It was so well crafted. I really thought they did a terrific, terrific job with it. All right, next up. Reed Hickman's X-Men writes, hey, John and Rob, just missed Rob, unfortunately. Love the MCU Phase 4 trailer, especially Eternals. And it also made me more excited about Phase 5 and the introduction of mutants. I got to ask, if Feige asked you, who is on the starter X-Men team, John and Rob, which characters will you pick? Oh, okay. So if Feige gave me a call and said, okay, we're going to start with an X-Men team, who should be on it? Listen, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to go very, very classic. I'm going to, obviously, the Professor, Scott, like the what I love the Fox X-Men movies. I do. I love them. Not all of them, but overall, I love the Fox X-Men movies. But the one thing they botched from the beginning and then continued to botch was their mishandling of the Cyclops character. And they had one of the perfect actors to play him in James Marsden. Like, James Marsden is a perfect guy to play Cyclops. I mean, back in the day, like 25 years ago, I thought Michael Biehn, and I still believe that he would have been a great Cyclops. Michael Biehn would have been an incredible Cyclops, but they got James Marsden, a perfect guy to play him, and they completely botched that character. But I would go very classic with one or two exceptions. So I would definitely go Scott. I would definitely go Jean. So they would have to be there. I would definitely have Storm. I would have Beast. And then the one kind of shift from traditional classic origin is I would have Wolverine. Other originals like Bobby is an original X-Man. Iceman is an original X-Man. But I would have him come in later. Other characters like that. But yeah, Beast, Jean, Scott, Wolverine. I mean, those are the ones I would start with. Those are the ones I would start with and then build from there. But really, there's many, 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 many ways to skin this cat, right? Many ways. There are 1,000 different combinations you could do, and I'm sure they'd all be great. Hell, start off with Bishop. Even though the origin of Bishop would be a really cool story to tell down the line, but still, start with Bishop if you want. I mean, I don't know, but if it was me, those are the ones I would start with. But again, that's just me. All right, thanks for writing that in, man. That was a good question. Next up, Streep is GOAT. John and Rob, the 2000s Battlefield Galactica, the 2000s Battlefield Galactica? You mean Battlestar Galactica. The 2000s Battlestar Galactica series is one of the best and most successful sci-fi shows ever created. By the way, Battlestar Galactica, the Ronald D. Moore 2000s one, is my number one all-time greatest show ever. I believe it is the greatest television show of all time. That's just me. Anyway, ever created, which begs the question, why hasn't Universal capitalized on a movie franchise for it? It's Terminators in space, but better. They've tried. There have been many announcements over the years about this person's now taking a crack at it. Now this person's taking a crack at it. And this never came along. Now apparently there is a movie version in the works and a new TV show in the works at the same time. Now, of course, though, they've been saying that there's a new movie version of it for years and years and years and years. Whether or not they'll actually now cross that Rubicon and will actually get that new movie, I don't know. But you're right. The mythology behind and the story behind Battlestar Galactica is so deep and so rich with so many great characters. Yeah, make a feature film series out of it, man. Go for it. But apparently they say there are, but they've been saying it for a long time. Let's see what happens. All right, Suthius writes, I wish I had more fun with Mortal Kombat than you guys did. I usually write complete sentences, but not for this one. Mechanics of story, dumb. Dialogue, eesh. The way some of the characters got their powers, dumb. Jax got his robotic arms, how? Stupid. Greenlighting a big project like this with a first-time director and first screenwriter, idiotic. In my opinion, if there is a sequel, I hope it'll be in the hands of more capable filmmakers. Barely passable. It's great seeing Ludi Lin in more projects. So yeah, I did really like seeing Ludi Lin. I've had a chance to meet and talk with Ludi Lin. Now this was back when he was in Power Rangers, and the Power Rangers came into studio. And we did this movie trivia schmodown special with the Power Rangers characters. And I had a chance to stand around and talk with Ludi, and his mom was there. Great kid, man. Great dude. Good Canadian kid as well, by the way. Ludi Lin's a good Canadian kid. And his mom was wonderful. And good things couldn't happen to a nicer dude. And it was really good to see him in there. But yes, I just do wish, I wish that Mortal Kombat movie was better. I still had fun with it. I mean, there's fun things in it. I just wish it was a good movie too. And it just wasn't. All right, next up, Suthius writes, as much of a TV film enthusiast I am equally an enthusiast of roller coasters and theme parks. I swear fans of both are the same. A new coaster would get built, and the first questions fans ask is, will it be the new #1 ride? Can it not be a good ride, first of all? That's all I want. A new movie gets released. Will it be the new #1 movie? Can it not be a good movie, first of all? That's all I want. And yes, there are film snobs and there are coaster snobs. Facepalm. Yeah, I'm not much of a roller coaster guy, I've got to admit, because I have a fear of heights. I don't know when I developed a fear of heights. Like, I can point to times when I was like 18 and 19 where I very clearly had no fear of heights. But somewhere between 18 and 19 and 24 or 25, I developed a really bad fear of heights. So roller coasters are no bueno for me. They're just no bueno for me. So I can't speak to that. But yeah, it is a common thing in film fandom. Like a new comic book movie comes out. Like I would go see like a new MCU movie, right? And people would know, okay, I've gone to see this new movie that comes out in 2 weeks. And the first thing everybody asks me, is it as good as the Avengers? It's like, why do we go there? I go see a new crime movie and everybody asks, is it as good as The Godfather? I go see a new DC movie. Is it as good as The Dark Knight? Like, whoa, like, why do we, and I think we're all guilty of this. I think I've been guilty of this too. I think we've all been guilty of this as film fans. Why do we immediately say, how does it compare to the greatest thing ever in that genre? Because if it's not as good as the greatest thing ever in the genre, then it must be bad. Right? And I think we've all done this. So you're right. That is a tendency that we as film fans have. And it's something we've got to move away from, Suthius. It's something we need to move away from. All right. We got time for a couple more here, guys. Nelly is my sister writes, one of two. Hey, John, I slightly disagree with your take that movie titles don't affect how people see a film. Oh, I never said that. I never said that. I said a movie title does not affect how good or bad a movie is. It is a piece of marketing, and all marketing can affect people's perceptions of a film. So just let's be very, very clear about what I did and what I did not say. Anyway, consider, if you will, Edge of Tomorrow with Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt. When Warner Brothers failed to market this film in any real way and instead undercut all moviegoers' expectations by changing its title after the fact to Live, Die, Repeat, it prevented casual fans of this genre and those who write off Cruise's box office success from seeing just how awesome this movie really was. No. And look, I don't disagree with what you're saying, but that's my point. The title of a movie is nothing more than a piece of marketing. Just like a trailer, just like a billboard, just like a commercial, just like a radio ad. The movie title is not important to how good or bad the movie is. The title of a movie does not impact in the slightest way how good or how bad the film is. But what it is a piece of marketing. And your marketing can sink a film. Your marketing can make a film like Deadpool's marketing did. Deadpool just crushed it with its marketing. And bad marketing can kill your film, like John Carter. Right? The marketing campaign for John Carter of Mars and Edge of Tomorrow are two of the worst marketing campaigns in the history of film. But a part of that marketing is the title. They never should have taken Of Mars out of the John Carter title. It should have been called John Carter of Mars. Because from a marketing point of view, it's more descriptive. Because just the title John Carter, it could be a legal drama for all anybody knows. Right? So absolutely, as a piece of marketing, the title of a film 100% can affect people's perception of an upcoming movie. Absolutely. But it absolutely has zero impact on how good or bad the movie is. So you and I are actually in complete agreement on that. You and I are in complete agreement on that. All right, next up. We've got Ulysses, not Claw, but great, writes, one of four. Just like with Chadwick, I feel the same as you, John, about Paul Walker in Fast and the Furious. I hate that people think it's disrespectful to carry on the character when it's the opposite. He would have wanted that. It's like if they were still alive and decided not to continue in those movies, do you not use that character anymore because the actor doesn't want to come back? Is it disrespectful to keep using the Joker since Heath Ledger? Damn it, my stream died again. Hold on a second, let me see if I can. I don't know why Stream Elements is acting so weird today. I get this from Stream Elements, so give me a second to see if I can bring it back because I want to pick up properly where we left off there. And is it going to come back? I don't think it's going to come back. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can. You know what? No, I am not going to stop until I can answer this question. Because this was a good question. It needs to be answered. Hold on a second. Sorry for the delay here, guys, but I want to make sure we get this in here. Because this was a very, very good point they were bringing up. And something that needs to be addressed. Oh, there we go. I think we're getting it back here. Yes, now we have it back. Okay, let me just find my spot again. We are at, let me see here. TV enthusiasts. No, okay, there we are. And it lost again. You know what? Sorry, guys. Because this thing is acting funny today for some reason. Hey, man, we're going to start off with your question tomorrow, okay? We're going to start off with your question tomorrow. If I had headphones on, you know I'd be destroying them right now. We'll pick up on tomorrow's show with your questions. That was a really good question. Don't worry, we'll start up with that again tomorrow. So I apologize for that. But this thing is acting really funny. We'll get it fixed, and we'll be up and running back again for tomorrow's show. So for now, guys, that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. We pretty much it's 12 noon already. It's time to outstand anyway. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks to Robert Meyer Burnett for coming along. And a special thanks to all of you guys who sent in those live comments and questions. Number one, because you give us great fun things to talk about. But number two, you actually supporting this channel and keeping this channel alive by doing that. And all of us here involved with the John Campea Show, thank you guys very, very much for that support. Okay, guys, remember, do the 4 main things. Stay smart, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and take care of the people around you. That'll do it for me for now, guys. Thanks a lot for being here. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.